What would you do if the president suddenly stopped in front of your tiny workshop and called you by name? The midday sun baked the streets of Ouagadougou, heat waves shimmering above the tarmac. Cars and motorbikes roared past, kicking up dust that clung to sweaty faces and windshields. At the corner of a busy junction, a man in worn, grease-stained clothes worked under the hood of an old pickup truck. His hands were black with oil, his face glistening with sweat. This was Thomas, once the brightest student in his school, now a roadside mechanic fighting to make ends meet. Back then, teachers praised his quick mind, and friends relied on him for help with homework. He dreamed of becoming an engineer, maybe even helping build a better Burkina Faso. But when a fire claimed his parents at 16, Thomas left school to raise his younger sister. An elderly villager taught him to repair engines, and in time he moved to the city, opening a tiny workshop at this dusty street corner. Work was hard, and the pay unpredictable. Some days, customers shouted at him for delays. Other days, he went home with empty pockets. Still, Thomas never cheated anyone. "If I stay honest and keep working," he often told himself, "better days will come." That afternoon, something unusual disrupted the routine. A long, gleaming black car rolled to a stop at the junction. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the area. Traffic slowed, and curious bystanders gathered. "It's the president's convoy," someone whispered. Thomas barely glanced up, crouched beside a motorcycle, tightening bolts. Big men in big cars didn't pay his bills, and he had work to finish. Then a tall man in a crisp military uniform stepped from the car. His eyes swept over the crowd and froze. "Thomas," he murmured, as if unsure he believed what he saw. Without looking up, Thomas replied, "1 minute, almost done here." The voice came again, louder, edged with emotion. "Thomas, is that really you?" This time, Thomas stood, wiping sweat from his brow with a rag. He looked up and stared. "Ibrahim?" Silence gripped the crowd. The man removed his cap and crossed the distance in 3 long strides. Before the bodyguards could react, he wrapped Thomas in a fierce embrace. "I can't believe it's you," the man said, his voice breaking. "My best friend, my brother." Gasps rippled through the onlookers as they recognized him. President Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso, crying openly in the street, holding a roadside mechanic as if afraid to let go. Thomas's chest tightened. He hadn't seen Ibrahim since they were boys in the same village, dreaming they'd change the country together. Life had sent one to the presidential palace, and the other to this dusty corner. "You promised we'd change this country side by side," Ibrahim said softly. "How did I let this happen to you?" "You didn't," Thomas said with a faint smile. "Life just took us on different roads." Ibrahim gripped his shoulders. "Then tell me everything. Come with me now. Leave this place." Thomas shook his head. "I can't. I've got customers waiting." The president straightened his cap, glanced at the unfinished work, and to everyone's astonishment said, "Then I'll sit here with you." And so he did. The president of Burkina Faso, a man whose days were usually measured in seconds, lowered himself onto a creaky wooden stool beside the oil-stained mechanic. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cars slowed, some stopping entirely, and phones rose to record the moment. Ibrahim didn't care. All he saw was his childhood friend, still carrying the same pride, honesty, and quiet strength he'd known since boyhood. They sat side by side on the old bench outside the tin-roofed workshop. Afternoon light filtered through drifting dust, the air shimmering in the heat. No one dared interrupt. For a moment, it felt as if the whole city had paused to watch. "You haven't changed, Thomas," Ibrahim said softly. "Still stubborn, still humble." Thomas chuckled. "And you're still dramatic. Sitting next to a dirty mechanic in front of half the city. Your guards look ready to faint." Ibrahim laughed through damp eyes. "Let them. They need to remember that power means nothing without loyalty and truth. You were always the one who reminded me of that." Thomas's gaze warmed. "Do you remember when we got caught stealing mangoes from Old Man Kiboli's farm?" "How could I forget?" Ibrahim grinned. "You ran so fast your shoe flew into the river, and you still came back for me. That's when I knew you were different. And you told me," Thomas said quietly, "that one day we'd lead this country together." Ibrahim's smile faded. "And I told you I'd never lose you. But you had to care for your sister. I should have searched for you, Thomas. I should have helped." Thomas looked down at his work-stained hands. "I don't blame you. I'm proud of you. Look at what you've done for this country." Ibrahim lowered his head. But how can I say I'm changing the country when the brightest boy I knew is still struggling to survive? Before Thomas could respond, a little girl of about 10 ran up, breathless. Papa, Mama says come home early. There's no firewood to cook the rice. She stopped short, her eyes widening at the sight of the man beside her father. Papa, is that the president? Thomas smiled. Yes, sweetheart. This is Uncle Ibrahim. Ibrahim's face lit up. Come here, little one. The girl hesitated, then stepped forward for a hug. She's beautiful, Ibrahim said, his voice softening. What's her name? Amina, Thomas replied with quiet pride. My pride and joy. Ibrahim's expression turned serious. She deserves more than this, Thomas. You've carried enough. Let me help. Thomas stood, wiping his hands on his trousers. Ibrahim, I don't need charity. I need a promise. Anything, Ibrahim said without hesitation. Promise me you'll make this a country where no child has to leave school to survive. Promise you'll protect the honest, the hardworking, the people who never gave up. Ibrahim gripped his hand firmly. I promise, on my honor, and I'll begin today, with you. That evening, Ibrahim canceled every meeting on his schedule. Back at the palace, he gathered his ministers in the grand hall. Today, he told them, I sat with a man who reminded me why I became president. We must do more. We must lift up the people who hold this country together with their bare hands, quietly, without reward. He never spoke Thomas's name that night in the palace, but Ibrahim's heart burned with a new fire, one lit by friendship, by love, and by the ache of seeing a good man live in quiet struggle. Meanwhile, Thomas walked home holding Amina's small hand. Neighbors peeked from doorways, whispering, their eyes full of new respect. But Thomas didn't care for the murmurs or the sudden attention. All that mattered was this. His old friend had remembered him, and maybe, just maybe, that meant something was about to change. The next morning in Ouagadougou, the sun climbed slow and golden over the city. Thomas was already at work, crouched beside a battered motorcycle, tightening its chain. He hummed under his breath, the rhythm of his day the same as always, until he noticed the traffic. Cars slowed, heads turned, and the sound of murmuring swelled. Then he froze. A black government convoy rolled to a stop in front of his workshop. This wasn't like yesterday's visit. Today felt official. Men in suits and crisp uniforms jumped out first. The crowd grew quickly, neighbors pressing closer, whispering. From the middle car, President Ibrahim Traoré stepped out. Not alone this time. Behind him came journalists, cameramen, and government officials. Thomas's eyes darted to the side, where a small stage had been set up right beside his dusty shed. Loudspeakers hummed, a microphone stood ready. What is this, Ibrahim? Thomas called, bewildered. Ibrahim walked over, his smile warm. Thomas, yesterday I cried. Today, I came to honor. He turned to the crowd, took the microphone, and his voice carried clear. People of Burkina Faso, today I want you to meet my friend. Not just any friend. This man was the top of our class. He taught me mathematics when I was failing. He shared food with me when I had none. He gave up his own dreams to care for his sister. And while I became your president, he worked quietly, humbly, here by the roadside. The murmurs died down. All eyes were on Thomas. Yesterday, Ibrahim continued, he reminded me of what real service means. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask to be made rich. He asked me to promise, to work harder for people like him, people who labor day and night with honesty and dignity. The crowd erupted in applause. Today, I make good on that promise. Ibrahim turned back to Thomas. From this moment, you will no longer work by the roadside. Your workshop will become a government-sponsored training center, a place where you will teach young people to repair cars, to earn a living, and to hold their heads high. The building is ready. The tools and equipment are waiting. A team will work alongside you. Thomas stared at him, speechless. His lips moved, but no words came. And one more thing, Ibrahim said. Your daughter, Amina, will have a full scholarship. Any school you choose, all the way to university. And your family will move into a better home provided by the government. The weight of it hit Thomas like a wave. His knees weakened. Tears ran down his face as he dropped his wrench and covered his eyes. He had never asked for any of this. All he'd wanted was to be remembered. And now, he was being celebrated. The crowd clapped harder, some wiping their own tears, others shouting, "Long live the president!" Cameras clicked. Journalists leaned over one another, shoving microphones forward, their flashes catching every bead of sweat on Thomas's brow. A few minutes later, he found himself on the small stage, a microphone trembling in his hands. He cleared his throat, eyes scanning the crowd. I don't know what to say, he began, his voice unsteady. I never wanted fame. I only wanted to do the right thing. He paused, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. And I'm not the only one. There are many people like me across this country. People who are good, people who are strong, but who go unnoticed. Please, don't forget them. He turned to Ibrahim, his voice softening. Thank you, my brother. Not just for this, but for remembering who you are. And where you came from. That evening, the story raced across Burkina Faso. TV stations replayed the embrace between the president and the mechanic. Radio spoke of a friendship that shook the nation. On social media, clips of the speech spread like wildfire. People cried, people cheered. Some even said that maybe, just maybe, things were finally changing. In a small home not far from the workshop, Amina wrapped her arms around her mother. Mama, Papa's a hero, she said, her eyes shining. Yes, Esther replied, tears welling in her eyes. And today, the world finally sees it. That night, in the quiet of his study, Ibrahim sat alone with an old photograph. Two boys in faded school uniforms grinned at the camera, one with his arm slung around the other. The president touched the picture gently. Thank you, Thomas, he whispered. You reminded me of who I am. 3 days later, life already felt different. The new mechanic training center buzzed with activity. People from nearby towns came to greet Thomas, shake his hand, take pictures, and thank him for his honesty. That morning, as Thomas swept the front steps, a black, luxury car rolled to a slow stop. Its polished body gleamed like liquid under the sun, far too fine for this dusty street. Two men stepped out. One was tall, wearing dark glasses that hid his eyes. The other was shorter, but carried himself like someone used to giving orders. Are you Mr. Thomas? The tall man asked. Yes, Thomas said, leaning on his broom. How can I help you? We have a business proposal, the shorter man replied. A private one. Thomas led them into his small office. The shorter man glanced around before placing a thick brown envelope on the desk. Inside, he said in a low voice, is 5 million CFA. Thomas frowned at the envelope. What's this for? The man smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. We know you're close to the president. Everyone does. And we know he trusts you. What we want is very simple. Thomas's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? This time, the tall man spoke. On his next visit, make sure he drinks something we give you. That's all. After that, you'll be richer than your dreams. Your own car shop, houses in Abidjan and Dar es Salaam, your daughter studying abroad. Thomas felt a chill. You want me to poison the president? Shh. The tall man's head snapped toward the window, scanning outside. The shorter man leaned closer, lowering his voice. It's not poison, just a special drink. He'll get sick for a while, but you'll be safe. We have people everywhere. Thomas stood slowly, folding his arms. His face gave nothing away. Let me think about it. Come back in 2 days. The men exchanged satisfied looks. The shorter one shook his hand. Good decision. We'll be in touch. As soon as they stepped out, Thomas locked the door behind them and bolted toward home. He burst into the kitchen, where Esther was stirring a pot. Esther! Thomas shouted as he burst through the door. She nearly dropped the spoon in her hand. What is it, my husband? She asked, eyes wide with fear. Thomas pulled out a chair and sat heavily, breathing hard. Listen to me. 2 men came to see me. They brought an envelope full of money. They want me to give the president something to drink, something that will make him sick. Esther's spoon clattered into the pot. She covered her mouth with both hands. Oh my God! People are wicked. That man, the president, has done nothing but help us. I know, Thomas said firmly. That's why I will never agree. I only told them to come back in 2 days so they wouldn't suspect I'm going to the police, or the president himself. So what will you do? She asked, her voice shaking. I will go to the president tonight, Thomas said. He must know about this immediately. That evening, Thomas tucked the brown envelope under his arm and slipped the small piece of paper with the men's phone number into his pocket. With the help of the president's assistant, he arranged a private meeting. When Thomas entered the presidential office, Ibrahim rose with a smile. "My brother, what brings you here at this hour?" Thomas walked straight to the desk, set down the envelope and the paper. His voice was low but steady. "Your enemies want me to betray you." Ibrahim's smile faded, his eyes locked on Thomas. Thomas told him everything: the men's faces, their voices, the promises of houses and power, the so-called special drink. When he finished, he looked the president in the eye. "My president, I owe you my life. I could never harm you. I knew I had to tell you." For a long moment, Ibrahim said nothing. Then he sat back, deeply moved. "Thomas, you just saved my life." The president immediately called his security chief. Within hours, a covert team tracked the two men to a hotel just outside the city. They were arrested without warning and brought in for questioning. When the president heard they were in custody, he asked Thomas to sit beside him in the investigation room. The man who had made the offer sat in chains, his head bowed. "Why did you do it?" Ibrahim asked calmly. The man's voice shook. I was sent. There are people who want power. They told me if I helped remove you, I'd get a seat in the new government." "Who are these people?" one of the officers demanded. The man hesitated, then whispered, "They're powerful. But I was greedy. I didn't think you'd find out. I blamed the devil." Thomas leaned forward, his voice cold. "Don't blame the devil. You had a choice, and you chose evil." The man lowered his head. He was later sentenced to 45 years in prison, no chance of parole. His picture on the evening news shocked the entire country. That night, Ibrahim called Thomas again. "You didn't just save me," he said quietly. "You saved this country from falling into the wrong hands. What can I ever do to thank you?" Thomas smiled. "You already have. By being a good friend." Ibrahim hugged him tightly. "No, Thomas. From today, you are more than a friend. You are my brother." Days passed, and the story of Thomas's loyalty spread across the nation. Newspapers called him the mechanic who saved the president. Teachers told school children about his courage and honesty. Across Burkina Faso, people began to believe again that true friendship and good character could still be rewarded. Finally, President Ibrahim Traoré called a national press conference. Thomas and his family sat in the front row, unsure what was about to happen. The president stepped up to the podium, smiling warmly. "My fellow Burkinabe, today is not about me. It is about someone who reminded me, and reminded all of us, what loyalty, truth, and friendship truly mean." He pointed toward Thomas. This man was offered riches, houses, and power. But instead of choosing evil, he chose to protect me. He chose honesty. The crowd erupted in applause, many with tears in their eyes. "Today," the president continued, "I want to honor not just Thomas, but his entire family." The president turned toward the crowd and smiled. "Where is Amina?" he called. Thomas squeezed his daughter's hand. "Go on, my child." Amina walked to the stage slowly, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it. She held her father's hand tightly, as if afraid to let go. President Ibrahim's voice rang clear. "I am proud to announce that Amina, the daughter of Thomas, will receive a full government scholarship to study at any university of her choice, anywhere in the world. From today until the day she graduates, all her school fees, books, travel, and accommodation will be paid in full." The crowd erupted in applause, cameras flashing like stars. Amina's eyes filled with tears. She turned and hugged her father so tightly he could barely breathe. "Thank you, Papa," she whispered. Thomas kissed the top of her head. "You deserve it, my daughter." But the president wasn't finished. He scanned the audience. "And now, where is Madame Esther?" Thomas's wife rose slowly, wiping tears from her cheeks. She never imagined such a day could come. "Madame Esther," Ibrahim said warmly, "you stood by your husband. You encouraged him to do the right thing, even when it was dangerous. You have raised a family built on love and strength. As a gift from the people of Burkina Faso, I am opening a large, modern supermarket in your name. You will be the owner. You will never have to worry about survival again." Esther gasped. Her knees buckled and she dropped to the floor, hands trembling. "Thank you, sir. Thank you," she cried. The president gently lifted her up. "No, my sister. I should be the one thanking you." Later that day, a new building was unveiled in the heart of the city, the Thomas and Esther supermarket. Inside, rows of bright shelves stood stocked with goods, freezers hummed with cold drinks, and cash counters were ready for customers. Staff members stood waiting to work, every Thing prepared. Not far away, Thomas's dusty roadside workshop had been transformed into one of the largest mechanic training centers in the country. Young boys and girls were already signing up, eager to learn from the man who had become a national symbol of loyalty. That evening, Thomas and his family gathered in their new home for dinner. The table overflowed with food, and the air was filled with laughter. Thomas raised his glass of juice. To my wife, my daughter, and my brother the president, today we celebrate not just success, but friendship and truth. To truth, Esther echoed. To my scholarship, Amina added with a grin. They all laughed. Back at the presidential palace, Ibrahim Traoré stood by his window, gazing at the stars. In a quiet voice meant only for himself, he said, "Some presidents are protected by guards, guns, and gates. But me, I am protected by a friend." And so began a new chapter for Burkina Faso. A country where even a poor roadside mechanic could rise, where honesty proved stronger than riches, and where friendship truly could change the world. True friendship and loyalty never fade with time. Even the smallest acts of kindness can plant seeds that grow into life-changing opportunities. Real leadership is measured not by power, but by how you lift others up. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who believes in the power of friendship and kindness. Thank you for watching. Your support helps us tell more stories that inspire the world.